as expected, it was a match that was not short of entertainment. We had actors on both sides. There was Jos Butler. There was, of course, a very good start from Faf du Plessis and Anuj Rawat. But at the end, it was a gentleman who was on loan from Cricbuzz Live to the IPL who ended up finishing off the game and finished it off in style. 44 not out of just 23 deliveries at a time when things had got, well, not quite out of hand, but was on the verge of getting out of hand with just maybe one all-rounder in Wanindu Hasaranga to come. A good game. And at the end of the day, at the end of the season, if Rajasthan end up not being in the top 4 and they're looking like they're favourites still to do so, they will probably look back at matches like this saying, these are 2 points we should have taken and grabbed them. On Cricbuzz Live, joined by Joy Bhattacharjya and Shaun Pollock. Joy, we say it every time he steps out. I'm so glad we, the management and everyone, was generous to let DK go and play some cricket.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, not only are they generous, the Kolkata Knight Riders will be looking at the generosity that they have both towards Bangalore in so many ways. First, you have Dinesh Karthik, and then you have Shahbaz Ahmed, who plays for Bengal, literally from your backyard. He's gone. So the two guys who played starring roles are basically, one is from KKR, one is from Bengal. And these are the two guys who got them across the line. So absolutely fascinating innings. And I think that 14th over from somebody of the quality and class of Ashwin, 21 runs there, that was the game. That was where Dinesh Karthik finally stepped on the gas. And that 67-run partnership was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, they speak the same language, but in that over, it was Dinesh Karthik who had the wool over his Tamil Nadu mate. But Shaun, two things. Joy's already mentioned the over where he hit Ashwin. Now, was there a case of Yuzvendra Chahal maybe coming back in over 2 too late, and also Navdeep Saini, the one bowler they could have targeted, being sort of put up there with a nice little target?
Yeah, I think what you do as a captain is when you're in a situation like they were, you're almost dominating. You've picked up the 5 wickets and they're under pressure. And that's what made that over of 21 so special. Is it's almost like it's unthinkable for someone to take that over on. You know, they're more like, well, let's form a little partnership. Let's knock it around. Let's get 20. Let's get ourselves into a position. And then at the back end, let's hammer it away. I mean, it was assisted by that no ball. Obviously, it ended up being 10 in 2 deliveries. I mean, 1 delivery rather than just the 1 boundary. But yeah, he came out and played fearlessly, did DK. And it was just fantastic to watch. I think he's settled into a role there too. You know, maybe at the other franchises where he's always been looking, maybe I can get up the order, maybe I can bat at a different position. But he seems really accepting of the fact that, I mean, he actually sometimes only goes in at 7, sometimes even 8. But he's focused on what that role is and how he's supposed to play it. And I think over the years, I mean, even the years that I work with him, he wasn't always the calmest customer. You know, there was a lot going on. He was trying to fiddle around and try and do different things. Whereas this time around, from what I've seen so far in his knocks, he's very calm. He got 100 in that final. I can't remember what final it was one day before we were working on the South African series. But I think just mindset-wise, he's in a really good space. And that's so important to have someone in that space of mind at the back end when it comes down to the crunch. Comfortable win in the end. I mean, they set it up nasty. Faf du Plessis played great up front. That partnership was important. That was one of the cases where, as a coaching staff, you look back and Faf's dismissal, for example, and you say, why did you hit it in the air? We were so far ahead of the rate. It was such a good start to the innings. Was there any need for you to take that risk, particularly after what unfolds down the line? But yeah, they were in real trouble, and DK needs to take all the applause.
Yeah, I'm trying to even think of an analogy for something that has a brilliant top and a brilliant bottom, but nothing in between. I'll come up with it at some point. But Joy, there was a stat that amazed me that they talked about during the game. Yes, of course, his ability to finish and the boundaries he hit, the way he hit them. 209th consecutive match in the tournament for Dinesh Karthik. He's missed one game in, I think it was 2008 for Delhi. That's it. Just the one game he missed. How do you achieve that?
No, he has remarkable fitness standards. And, you know, I get completely what Shaun is saying. I've seen him fidgety. He's always been talented. He's always been talented. Remember, when that 2005 selection of Dhoni happened, it was a hairbreadth between him and Dinesh Karthik. They were there together. And then something happened and Dhoni took over. And, Dinesh is Karthik's, wicket-keeper batsman. Therefore, you're more wicket-keeper than batsman. Then your chances fade away. But the way he has rediscovered himself, the most important thing about Dinesh is he's enjoying himself now. So once Karthik starts enjoying himself, he's sitting, he looks comfortable, he looks happy, and he looks like, if I win it, I win it. If I don't, I'm still delighted to be still playing the IPL. That's the spirit with which he's playing, and it makes so much of a difference. And it doesn't hurt that he's one of the finest finishers in the game. He practices this all the time. Scenarios, Polly, he's your man. Scenarios.com is what he plays in the nets all the time. And all he does is scenarios.com.
Yeah, I think what the key to that is, a lot of people will say to us, well, what do you mean he's now calmer? What do you mean he's now worked it out? So it's just a simple assessment of, for example, you need 10 and over, okay? You hit one boundary, you don't even go for a maximum. You knock around 4 singles and you get a 2 in as well. You've got your 10. So just to have that thought process in the back of your mind that, hold on, unless I need 24 and over, I don't need to go helter-skelter. I've just got to, and even if you say I'm looking for 12s, that's one maximum singles and a 2. So it's just that comprehension, I think, and that often only comes with maturity and age. And the important thing about it is the fact that you're at the crease, but he's a senior enough a player to communicate with the other guys around him as well. So just say, listen, let's not panic. We only need one boundary, a couple of singles, and we've got what we've required for the over. And that just simplifies things. And in the pressure of battle, sometimes the simplicity is not always the approach that people take. They get sort of overcomplicated. So I think that's where he must be playing a part as well.
Yeah, and I think as Shaun was sort of giving us this description of his calmness, I was just thinking back to a couple of strokes he played, got a boundary in the over, maybe even 2, and then just knocked it into a big gap, picked up 2, knocked it into a similar gap, picked up 2 again. Did not take risks, but it was not just block for 1 or try to be cute for another 1. He was calm and he was picking up runs and knowing exactly what he was doing out there. But let's also look at the man at the other end. It was still a stage joy when, despite the genius of DK, the finishing genius of DK, he probably couldn't have done it alone. Had the man at the other end not contributed, had he got out, look at Shahbaz, 31 of 14.
No, absolutely. And I think the most important thing is, where Shahbaz is from, Gautam? He's from where we live in Gurgaon, very close to that. There's a place called Mewat. And I'll tell you a little bit about Mewat, because Mewat is part of the Haryana Cricket Association, but they're not very friendly. So, they keep fighting. So players from Mewat find it very difficult to get into the Haryana team. So what happens to Shahbaz? He comes all the way to Calcutta, starts playing club cricket out there, gets selected for Bengal. Somebody picks him out there. Joydeep Mukherjee has a look at him. If you remember those days, Simon Katich used to be a coach for Kolkata Knight Riders, and then he went to the Royal Challengers Bangalore. And there's just one phone call and said, do you have anyone interesting there? And they said, there's this kid Shahbaz Ahmed who plays. So he goes for a trial, he impresses. So it's a very circuitous journey to reach there. But once he's reached there, he's so determined of making his chance, and he's taken his chances. He's hit those sixes, he's taken those singles, and of course, he's got the senior at the other end to guide him. But he showed remarkable maturity as well, given the circumstances.
Yeah, and it's not the first time. Look at this. Not even the first time. Forget this season. 27 of 20, 45 of 26, 4 fours, 6 sixes total in a couple of games, Shaun. But it's a role he's played before, in a sense. They've even pushed him at number 3 in the order. A couple of seasons ago, I think it was in Bangalore, or maybe even last season, when they were just trying to plug that little hole, who bats in there, and they tried him there. Of course, he can bowl a bit. So you've got an asset, an overall all-round asset there.
Yeah, and that just creates depth, doesn't it? I mean, we haven't seen him really operate with the ball yet, but the depth that he's got. I think the key to his innings as well was the way DK played. I mean, DK was probably on strike for, about 10 or 12 deliveries, and maybe Shiraz faced 1. So it just gave him time to just regroup. And then once DK had played, but DK needed the support of someone. And when he got on strike, it wasn't like it was the weakest link. He was up to the challenge. And And some of the shots he played, even the one that stands out for me, I think he only got 2 for it. But he got into position early to play the little paddle over the 45. It was a slow ball instead of the normal pace-on delivery. And he adjusted and made sure he still scooped it over. So he had the presence of mind. And that just shows me those little things are often when you can see whether a guy's in the right headspace. And he seemed to be in that headspace. And as I say, with the chats that I'm sure they had between overs, he was looking calm and composed. And you could see the disappointment when he got out and dragged it on. He wanted to be there at the end, which is also a good sign.
Yeah, and if you think about it, just the flip side of what I said earlier on the show, that if Rajasthan end up not qualifying in the top 4, they'll look at this match. Joy, I think the flip side of that is if Bangalore do get into the top 4, and for their fans, we certainly hope they do, then this is one of the matches they'll look at saying, look, these were 2 crucial points that we had probably almost lost.
Yeah, this is not known to be a Bangalore quality resilience, where you've sort of allowed them to get 41, 42 in the last 2 overs, come back, lost wickets up front. You're in a situation where your middle order is exposed. There's just a couple of all-rounders left, and bowling all-rounders, not batting all-rounders. And then you make it. Look at that rate. 11.2 and 11.5 in the last 10. And that's really what the difference is. And I think resilience is not a quality. Terrific striking ability up front, De Villiers, Gale, Kohli striking it all over the place. That's what Mangaluru is known for. This is not their standard game. And I think this is probably a more resilient team. Now think of this team with Maxwell back in and Hazelwood back in, giving them 4 overs. And you're looking at an even more difficult outfit to beat. They've won 2-1 with these 2 crucial players out of their first 11. So I'm really looking forward to what happens when those 2 join.
I'd just like to bring that graphic back again, Shaun. And there's a stark comparison. Joy mentioned 11.2 and 11.5, but have a look at the comparison. For Rajasthan, they had only lost 2 wickets, and 11 to 15 got them just 27 for 1. Here, Bangalore have lost 4 wickets, and 11 to 15 gets them 56 in those 5 overs. I think that's a stark comparison.
Yeah, it's something that's discussed a lot in team meetings is how can you keep a relative amount of momentum going, even when you feel like you're in a spot of bother with regards to losing wickets, maybe being tied down by some quality bowling. And it often goes down to like 1 boundary or 2 boundaries in those 5 overs, but more about rotation of the strike. And you don't want to stop the game. You don't want them to be able to pull you back in the middle overs. You should be running away from them in that stage. And it was through some quality bowling. Harsha Patel at that time was really mixing it up well and did a fine job. And Butler couldn't find his timing at all. Unfortunately for them, though, he did get it at the back end of the innings. But those will also be analysed. I mean, it'll be an area where you just think you get 1 boundary and an extra single each over, and it makes a massive difference to that scoring rate at that time.
Yeah, it certainly does. And every time I see something like that, Shaun, since you're around, I might as well say it. I've said it a couple of times on the show. A few years ago, I remember being in the company of one of our favorites, Robin Jackman. And out of the blue, we were having a chat about, comparisons and stats and anomalies. And he said, mark my words, look at T20 cricket. We talk about the first 6, the power play. We talk about the last 5. Compare 11 to 15 for both teams. Team that wins 11 to 15 will win more games than most. And I went back and analyzed 40 games. 39 out of 40 were won by the team who won 11 to 15. And it just struck me, and it stuck with me ever since.
Yeah, as you got it. I mean, a lot of the selection and a lot of the sort of policies that you put in place is how do we get through the first power play of the first 6? And then who's my death hitters and my death bowlers at the back 4 or 5? So, yeah, 11 to 15 is maybe a little bit sort of underestimated. But it is also a case in point that often it's when your best spinners bowl. And that's why they can pull things back.
Yeah, I mean, you could think of 10 over marks. If you're 80 for no loss, can you pull a team back from there? Or if you're 50 for 5, can the team batting make a bit of acceleration? But that's for another day. Yuzvendra Chahal, wherever he bowls, whether it's just outside the power play, towards the latter half of the innings. If you look at this spell, 4 overs, 2 for 15. He'd be delighted he got it against his old mates, but you'd have to say, Joy, a wasted spell in a sense.
Yeah, they played him. They bowled at 17th over with him, and there were two choices clearly. And Shahbaz and Karthik took the smart one, and they said the run rate is 32 at this point in time. It's 8 and over, and we don't need to take risks against him. They played him out. It was 28 at the end in 3 overs, but they knew that they could allow the run rate to rise by one. It didn't matter. They played him out. That's the respect they gave him. 4 overs in the 17th when you're chasing a target just shows the kind of respect they had for him. And he tried very hard. He tried to entice them, give them the kind of length where they could, would step forward and try and loft. They just patted it away and took singles. So he had a superb spell. I mean, he changed the game. He brought them into the game. It's just a pity that, the run rate was too low for him to make that much of an impact. They could afford to play him safely. Had they had another maybe 10, 12 runs at that point in time in their bucket, then they would have to take risks against him, and the outcome could have been totally different. But he did an amazing job for them.
I just think it's great. It's great to see him back, isn't it? He went through a period there where he lost confidence and was bowling very flat. As a short guy, when you do lose your confidence and you go to those quicker deliveries, it makes it easier to hit. But you can see the confidence is back. I mean, the amount of turn he got on some of those deliveries, that one to Willie, and then there was another one to the left-hander, which really ripped properly. And you can see he's got that bounce in his step. So knowing the individual, the nice guy he is, I'm really happy to see him back and confident.
Yeah, and that begs the question, which I think we've briefly only touched upon, the tactical choice of not going to him. We were looking on our little group about the matchup between him and Dinesh Karthik. For all DK's wonderful stats, his 209 matches, finishing innings, he had not a great matchup against Yuzvendra Chahal. And that's the point. You had to bring him on for more reasons than one, Shaun.
Yeah, I just think so. So often in those situations as a captain, what you think is, well, let me squeak through an over here. Let me get someone through because he's going to take his time. He's going to try and find his feet, and then he's going to look to attack. And when he does, that's when we get the matchup up. So now he can't go because he's a little bit nervous. So I think they were caught. I mean, we use the phrase of caught with their pants down. They were caught with their pants down with regards to the attitude of Karthik in his first 10 deliveries that he faced. No one could have predicted that. There's no way that I would have been able to say Karthik is going to come in and play that way and take an element of risk as early on in his innings as he did. So I think Samson would have been in the same boat. He would have been holding Chahal back to maybe slide him in the 15th or whatever over it may be. But they were definitely done by the change of tactics from Karthik.
No, but look, also there's one other point. When did Chahal actually come into bowl? He comes into bowl in the 7th over. Not a wicket has fallen till then. He had to come in. They had to bring him to take overs. So he takes a 1 wicket in the 7th. Then he takes 2 wickets in the 9th. If you take 1 wicket in the 7th, 2 wickets in the 9th. So they had to give him an 11th over as well. So they've already finished 7th, 9th, and 11th with him. So they had only one left to throw at him for Karthik. So, and he did his job. I mean, he took those 3 wickets up front. I mean, for him, poor chap, I mean, when he got his last over, the run rate was not enough for him to be able to do anything from there.
But then we are in agreement that he should have bowled earlier anyway, his 4th over. 7, 9, 11, Joy, if you're saying, then his 4th over should not have been the 17th over. I mean, yeah. I know Shaun makes a point about the fact that you're just thinking, can we squeeze one quick over out? But it's not just one quick over. They saw him going with Ashwin, and then they should have brought Chahal on immediately. Maybe try and put the brakes on, change something.
I think what they didn't anticipate was 21 from Ashwin in his 14th. That's basically what changed the game. Till then, the run rate is under control. That 21 run over broke their back. And that suddenly changed equations, because after that, what happens is Nadeem Saini comes back, goes for 16. You've given away 37 in 2, and the equation has changed. After that, the next over, Prasidh Krishna goes for 13. So by the time Chahal comes back, the run rate has just totally galloped out of control. But this is just 1 over at that point in time. So that 3 over spell, 14, 15, 16 is what breaks basically Bengaluru's back.
Yeah, it's also the most consecutive wins, 5 in a row among the list of, they've had 8 in a row against DC, but this comes second in the list, joint second in the list against a particular opponent. So that's 5 in a row they've won against the men in pink. Quick look at what DK has been talking at the end of the game. He's chatting with Harsha Bhogle, and he said he made a conscious effort this year to do justice to myself, because he felt, Shaun, that last year he could have done much better. The way he trained was much better this time around. Credit to the person who trained with me. I'm making a conscious effort to tell myself that I'm not done yet. He tells us all on Cricbuzz Live, just as every time he said, listen, guys, I still play the game. I might be sitting here right now because I'm not doing anything. But he tells us, when I went in, we needed 12 runs and over, I had to keep going. We train, or rather, I train for these situations, is what he said. And that's we heard on commentary, Shaun. He said that to Sunil Gavaskar when they were stuck in Belgrade together, trying to do a little quarantine period before heading to the World Test Championship. So Sunny got to pick his brains, and he said he trains for every situation. He anticipates a situation and said, this is where I will play those cute lap sweeps. This is the bowler I will take down. So it all pays off.
Yeah, as I said, I'm just convinced his mind's in a good space. And as you say, if you've trained, if you've almost had a vision of what the scenario is going to be, scenario.com, then you're ready to go, and you can just implement. So, yeah, I just think he's in a really good headspace, and hopefully for him that continues for most of the tournament.
I know it might be jumping the gun, Joy, and I know it might sound a little cheeky here. We even said it to him, probably half jokingly, that all the best, DK, for the IPL, and maybe a good performance. You could be putting yourself in contention for Australia. In all seriousness, why not?
Yeah. Well, how many finishers do we have? I mean, there's Hardik Pandya, there's Kunal to a certain extent, there's obviously DK. How many other great Indian finishers are you seeing around? I'm not seeing that many experienced finishers. Because I'll tell you one thing, two things. Forget age at this point in time. Karthik is supremely fit. He's as fit as somebody 7, 8, 10 years younger than him. He was always a physical freak. Like Brendan McCullum, he's a bit of a physical freak. He's really fit. So the only thing that will stop him is the fact that, if he's not performing enough. I think he does well. He should be on that flight.
Also, Shaun, probably a bit of a crowd in the Indian team. He would probably make most 11s in the world in that World T20.
Yeah, I mean, the way he's playing now, I mean, as I say, this form continues, and then it really is a headache for people at the back end. I suppose the only issue he's got, Rishabh Pant, would be the man with the gloves. But if his batting's good enough, you never know. Maybe they just give him that role and he does fielding instead. But yeah, I don't think he'll even want us to discuss that at this stage. I think he's focused on each game, making sure he does his best. But if he plays like this, form-wise, he's definitely going to throw his name in the hat.
Yeah, well, he's made no secret of the fact that he'd love to don the national colours again, not necessarily hinting at a certain tournament down under, but all we can do is hope that his performances keep coming and he just breaks the door down. There's no way you can do anything about it if you break the door down. At the moment, he has broken the points table apart. It was looking for the best part that it would have been Rajasthan on 6 points and a bit of a gap opening up. How beautiful does this look now? Rajasthan, Kolkata, Gujarat, Punjab, Lucknow all on 4, and joining them are Bangalore also on 4. So just 3 teams who are pointless. Doesn't sound good to say pointless. 3 teams without points. And then you've got Delhi with that solitary victory. So certainly it's made the points table, Shaun, look a lot closer. And that's the way we like it. 14 games for them to play a 10-team tournament.
Yeah, I suppose the amazing thing at this stage is that there's only one team that's been unbeaten. Normally at this stage of the tournament, you might have 2 or 3 or 4. So it's pretty open. I mean, there's no one who's doing the front running at this stage. It's all pretty much in the mix, and that's what the teams at the bottom end of the table will be enjoying, because then all of a sudden you put together a run of two victories and you're back in the mix. But yeah, it's not an easy position or not a familiar position to see Mumbai and Chennai lurking as low as they are.
Well, today's game, which was, of course, Rajasthan against Bangalore, was 1 playing 7. When we head to our next fixture, it's also going to be kind of top of the table, playing kind of bottom of the table. Kolkata playing Mumbai. It's been an age-old rivalry. Two teams who have won the tournament in the past. And the only difference this time, Joy, is that they're at different ends of the table, and something Mumbai will want to put right very, very quickly. We allow them one match. We allow them one defeat to start with, but they're not going to want to make it three.
No, absolutely. They are slow starters, and traditionally Kolkata are fast starters. I think it's got to do with east and west and latitudes and all that. But at the end of it, I mean, Kolkata's record against Mumbai has always been spoiler for Kolkata. Has always played spoiler for Kolkata. And one of the bellwethers for a good Kolkata season is, have they beaten Mumbai or not? Whether you see 2012 or 2014, when they beat Mumbai, they have a really good season generally. So they really, really look forward to trying to get Mumbai out, because they'll feel somewhere psychologically, no matter what, Mumbai may not have won a match in this tournament. Winning against Mumbai will make a huge difference to Kolkata.
Now, Shaun, the 11 we are putting up here is, of course, the 11 that started the last game. We were expecting Surya Kumar Yadav to play that game. We were told he was fit, but perhaps on the morning of the match or the afternoon, he wasn't feeling up to it. Likely, Anmolpreet Singh out, Surya Kumar Yadav in. How much of a difference does that make to this 11 for you?
Yeah, huge, the way Surya's played over the last 2 years in particular. I mean, even his RPL form for a bit longer than that has been fantastic. And yeah, as a team, when you look at the batting lineup, when you look in the change room and you look at the personnel around you, there's certain players when they come in that make you feel a little bit more calm or make you feel a little bit more confident about what you're trying to do. Some new roles for that Mumbai side. There's some different guys who've come in, and the sooner you get into winning ways, the better for everyone involved, because you do settle things down and you do have that self-belief that starts to come. They won't be short of self-belief. I mean, they've won enough titles to know that you just got to string together a couple of performances and start looking the part. But still, the fact of it needs to happen sooner rather than later is important.
Yeah, well, that one change is inevitable. It makes the batting look, it's already impressive with Rohit and Ishant starting off, and add Surya to the mix and the impressive Tilak Varma. It all looks fine. But I want to ask
Tilak's
both
look
of you.
good. I like Tilak. I haven't seen much of him, but I like him.
Yeah, well, that's already a box that's been ticked. But the question for you, Shaun, and I'll throw it to you and Joy, is about the bowling. Jasprit Bumrah, we allowed him that first off day. He came back and showed us the class player that he is. Does he have enough backup along with him to carry them through the season, and of course to get them that first victory?
Go, Joy.
Yeah, look, my belief is that one of the things that you see sooner rather than later, they perhaps were waiting a bit later for the season to get a bit older. Jaydev Unadkat instead of Basil Thampi, Jaydev, and especially because the match is in the MCA in Pune. If you remember, Pune, he had a sensational season in 2017 playing for Rising Pune Super Giants at that stage. He likes that pitch. He knows it well. And, it's still, the pitches are still not as slow as, somebody who really suits his kind of bowling. But I think he's a cleverer and a more experienced bowler than Basil Thampi. Basil Thampi is trying to go hard, and I don't think it's working for them. I see a change out there. They have one more option, and it's an interesting one. There's Arshad Khan also, who's a left-arm fast-medium bowler, who they rate a bit, and he's also another option they can look at. Arshad Khan is somebody they can look at as well. But those are the two options that definitely be looking at, because I can't, under these circumstances, seeing them play a spinner, because Mayank Markanday is there, but I can't see them playing. So it's either Jaydev Unadkat or Arshad Khan who'd probably come in and take a place out here. But the bowling is still work in progress, definitely. Certainly not the finished article.
With the Pune factor, I fully endorse what Joy was saying. I know it's not about local grounds anymore, but if you happen to have one of these grounds, either the Wankhede or the MCA ground, and it's been kind of your own, why not take advantage? Would you go with Jaydev Unadkat over Basil Thampi? Shaun?
Yeah, lots of left-hand options there, isn't it? You can see Zahir Khan's in the mix. He's got all the left-hand bowlers right. I'm just a little bit unconvinced at this stage. Maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe I see a little bit more to them by Sams and Mills. I know they've really been around the circuits. I like their variation, but I don't know if that's what I'm after. Maybe the Meredith is the better option. Raw pace, right-hander, charging. And Tampy, when I watched him in that first game, he picked up, I think, 2 wickets. Was it? One of them caught a short leg. There's often, when you watch those games, that's why the most difficult thing to do as management is to have a level head about the performances that you see, because some guys will walk out and they'll swing and it's edge there, middle one here, inside edge here, and they get to 40 and you think, oh, this guy's a rock star. But you need to sometimes just analyze the actual performance, the actual deliveries that are bowled, and try and eliminate the luck element of it. Tampy's performance in that first game, I was like, I think he's got away with a few deliveries there. Yes, he had pace. Yes, he rushed a couple of guys. Yes, they popped it up in the air. But it's still not a finished product. Bumrah has a bad game, but don't worry about that, because we know what he brings to the party. So that's why I am with Sams and Mills, is that, I've seen a little bit of them and they've done good jobs around the different T20 tournaments. But I don't know, something about two of them doing a similar kind of job doesn't quite work for me. So that's why I'm thinking Meredith might be the option.
Yeah, and possibly for Daniel Sams, because Tamal Mills seems to bring a little bit of an X factor, Joy. And Daniel Sams often is looked at even a batting all-rounder. And I don't think at the moment Mumbai really have worries about needing to strengthen their batting. So if a Meredith can give them +1 in the bowling department, they might just go with that, and then the Thampi versus Unadkat.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if Suryakumar returns. Suryakumar for Anmolpreet, they'll anyway feel a little bit more confident about their batting. Look, they tried to replace the Pollard and the Pandya brothers with Sams and David. And so far, it hasn't worked for them. But Mumbai is a very patient team. They don't normally change things. But Sams definitely hasn't looked the part so far. Go with an all-out pace guy out here. Say that, okay, Suryakumar is going to come in, give them a little bit more pace, a little bit more accuracy. And I think that's the direction which they're going. I mean, and Mumbai will, though they're calm about their first win, but after a couple of defeats, even they're going to be a little bit restless.
But on the other end of the table, the men in purple and gold have had not too many reasons to worry, not too many reasons to scratch their heads. But when they look at the opposition, they'll have driven up the highway to Pune, and they'll be thinking, okay, we're up against Mumbai. Not the best record against them. I think Joy put it beautifully. If you look at seasons they've done well, you look back and say, aha, that's the one box we tick. We probably beat Mumbai. Shaun, for you, as a player who's been around for a long time, do you let things like this get to you, or do you somehow try and completely put it out and say they're just another team? Is it easy to do that?
You find a spin in it. You need to find a spin in it, and the spin would be, we haven't played them in Pune. So it's a completely different venue. We can't read too much in it. It's the Wankhede Stadium in Kolkata. Those have been the venues where we've sort of participated against them. So you put that different spin in it. But I think you also analyze it from a perspective of different team. They've come across very, very, very settled Mumbai Indian sides over the years. This one is not in the same space. They're trying to get roles sorted out. They're also trying to get guys back on the park. And, after the performance, like even the performance of Russell, I mean, I know they didn't get off to the greatest start, but guys are stepping up, and that's what you want. You don't want just 2 or 3 players playing well. You want different players from the squad standing up and doing their roles in the side and leading the team over the line. So that's what they'll be looking for. And I like the look of that team. There's not too many issues I have there. I think it's got a nice balance. I like the bowling attack. And I think at this current stage, they're in a better space.
Yeah, I think the only headaches will come once they have the choice of players, with the likes of Cummins coming in, Finch not coming with the greatest amount of form from Pakistan, but they'll hope that towards the fag end of it, he can pick up a few runs and come in with just the right amount of form at the right time, Joy. I think that's when they'll start having to make the choices.
Yeah, I think, what is it? Can they play from tomorrow? Can Pat Cummins play tomorrow? No, he can't, right? Till the 6th, they cannot play. That's
till the 6th. Same problem as Glenn Maxwell.
So he can't play tomorrow. Look,
tomorrow is the 6th.
Tomorrow is the 6th. So till the 6th, does it include the 6th or not is a good question. But
I
assuming
think
that
it's after the 6th.
it's after the 6th, so which means that,
Yeah.
look, the only two things they'd be worried about is Venkatesh Iyer hasn't got runs. He hasn't looked particularly convincing out there, and nor has Nitish Rana. And I think Shivam Mavi, they've always had that doubt of whether he's really giving them enough as this bowling all-rounder that they have. Those are the three things. Now, what happens is somebody like Andre Russell bats the way he does. It just it overshadows everything. You just see that 17, 20 odd balls or the 15, 15, 20 odd balls, and everything is overshadowed. Nothing matters anymore. So a performance from Andre Russell tends to paper over deficiencies. But this Kolkata team, I think they'd all be worried that the man they retained for so much money is not really in form. The man they bought back for 8.5 crores is not in form. They need a bit of a performance. If they've got to make a concerted run, Shivam Mavi and the two batsmen have to perform for them.
I know there's not a lot going wrong, Sean, but I'll just pick up on Joy's point of Venkatesh Iyer. I mean, I know when he was performing last season, everything seemed to go well. He was the man at the top of the order. Now, a slightly unfamiliar partner. He's got Ajinkya Rahane with him. Is there still a case at some point to consider moving Sunil Narayan up the top? Because he's in your 11. And as far as I'm concerned, he does nothing at 8 and 9.
Yeah, I think more on the back end or into the middle to the back end of the tournament, there's that option. And for now, I want guys to settle into their roles. I don't want to be people going up and down the order and the yo-yo approach. I think the thing for Venkatesh Iyer, and it's sometimes hard to quantify, but having been in the mix, when you get promoted to another level, there's an element of variability, instability, noise in the system that you now all of a sudden have to deal with. Some comes from the press, but some of it actually comes from you, because now you've been elevated to a new position and you actually have to start to believe that you belong at that level. And in order to belong at that level, you means you have to perform more consistently. So when there's nothing on the line, when you're just putting your name in the mix and people are saying, oh, he should definitely play, he should or shouldn't play, give him a chance. That's one element. Now all of a sudden you thrust into the Indian team. You play there in the different formats. They maybe give you different roles. It's a completely different kettle of fish to deal with. And I just think that's where he's at. And the more the staff around him can just get him to listen, try and put all that out of the system. Just watch that white kookaburra coming down at you and think about the positive way you play it. Maybe have a look at some footage of how you went last year and just see ball, hit ball, and the rest of it will look after each other. Easier said than done, but that's sort of where he needs to go. So you do feel for him a little bit because what you want as a player is you get raised to the next level and you just fly. It doesn't often happen like that. You have to deal with the extra noise that it creates.
Yeah, pretty much what Gautam Gambhir said to Ayush Badoni that day. Don't play the ball, or play the ball. But I think Sean's nailed it about Venkatesh Iyer. You just think back to him. He was just this carefree guy who never tucks in his shirt, and he was just hitting the ball everywhere. Now, suddenly he's got the India jersey, Joy. That's made a difference. I mean, yes, of course, it gives you confidence, but it has that reverse effect that Sean just mentioned, the noise.
No, absolutely. And the fact that Shubman Gill has not been retained and he's been retained. And it's his job at the top of the order now. And these are responsibilities. Look, he's a very, very smart young man. He's a man with his very, very smart head on his shoulders. He'll find a way out, but it's never easy. And I think he's just going through that phase. He needs to go through it. The other thing is that even when you want to do everything right, every sport has a certain element of luck. You'll get one Jaffa, one just shot that goes a bit astray. So he's just got to control himself and say, there's lots more to go. The franchise is backing me totally. I've just got to be patient. It'll come.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I haven't actually listened to Sunil Gavaskar about him, but knowing SMG, he would have said something about him not tucking his shirt in. Everything else, all the boxes he ticked. Munaf Patel, Venkatesh Iyer, tuck your shirts in, guys. But let's not digress, and let's come to the joy factor question, because I'd like both of you to participate in this, Joy, for a reason we'll find out in a moment.
Okay, who were the last pair of brothers to be nominated as Wisden Cricketers of the Year in the same year? The year was 1966, and the answer is Sean.
Might have been the Pollock brothers. Whoa, there we go. Graham and Peter. I actually, yeah, I thought it might be, but I actually thought for some unknown reason when you asked the question that it may be the War brothers. I can remember them having a good tour of England. I didn't know whether they had maybe got it together, but I think that 66 must have been on the back of the Trent Bridge Test match. I think they had a fantastic Test match, fantastic year. And often the people who were front of mind in those days were the people who had toured the country in that summer. So, yeah, they always look back on it fondly. And I'm sure, I don't know how quickly people would have got that answer. I'm sure there would have been more than a couple that eventually did get it, but I don't know. Maybe we did. What was the speed? How quickly did they get it? 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 20 minutes?
Well, sometimes it's about 10 seconds. Trust me. Before we've finished, before we've gone off the show, it's already there. This one took a little bit longer, probably as long as you took to get it, Shaun, with all your modesty in there. You were thinking wars, you were thinking chapels, maybe, I'm not sure. But yeah, it is the Pollocks, and we are delighted that we have the Pollock lineage continuing on Cricbuzz Live. Our winner, Sarangarajan. Well done, Sarangarajan. Sarangas.
He won the last time I was on, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a name that's unfamiliar to me, so I was probably not on the show that day. So apologies. Apparently, I'm told he's won it thrice this season. It's unlike Rajasthan, he's won it thrice this season. It should have been 6 points for Rajasthan for the longest time in that game. It wasn't. It's Bangalore on 4, Rajasthan on 4, lots of other teams on 4, and Sarangarajan on 6 points if you give him 2 for every time he's answered the question. So well done to you. Well done to everybody who tuned in. We've got so much more cricket coming. Do join us, of course, later today for Mumbai against Kolkata from Pune. We'll be there. And for now, just enough time to say thank you, Shaun Pollock. Thank you, Joy Bhattacharya. And we'll see you all very soon on Cricbuzz Live. Good night.